But Johnny, if you had to have one horse in this race, I already know who this is.
Right here.
So we alluded to this a little bit, but we're talking about running backs now in contract year. There was this is probably my favorite topic this week. There was a fantastic post here, so I got to give him a shout out as soon as my computer loads the link. But it basically was breaking down the tiered running backs or breaking down tiers of running backs based on contract year. So we've got tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. We want to dive into a little bit here. So this was posted by Duels 102, and it says running backs in a contract year. By the way, guys, we find all these topics on Reddit Fantasy Football. If you guys aren't checking that out, you should. There's so much knowledge, and it's all community-based, meaning people are bringing this from all different kinds of perspectives. So really get out there and check it out. So the lead here says players in a contract year normally try a little bit harder than players in a long-term contract. There's tiers here. So let's start with tier 1, Johnny. I want to talk through guys in each tier that each of us think have the best shot to produce this year. And this one, we're starting off hot on the first one because tier 1's got a couple contract guys here. So tier 1, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, and Derrick Henry. Johnny,
they all have contract issues here.
Yeah, well, except like the difference though is like Derrick Henry has already signed his tag.
So that's the wonderful point that you brought up, Travis. That Derrick Henry, out of all three of these guys, is the only one that has signed his tenor for this year. Alvin Kamara is expected to play as of right now, but he could end up holding out. And then as the entire fantasy football community found out 2 days ago, Dalvin Cook willing to hold out and will hold out, will not play a snap until he gets his new contract. Let's see how that plays out, Cotton, because it has not done well so far for anybody else who has held out. So for me, immediately I cross off Dalvin Cook for this because just because of two things, right? The holdout, and then what have we seen? We've kind of seen a regression from all of these players who hold out and either get their money or they don't get their money and then they come back and they're just not quite the same player either way, because they're either missing time or they got their money, so they're not as hungry. Derrick Henry is on a different position because he is on a franchise tag, and so he is still looking for that major contract. I do think he's the best running back out of the three as well. So that's where I'd go with tier 1 would be Derrick Henry. Who's your tier 1 guy?
So I would love to just kind of say, well, the holdout has me so scared I'm going to move off of Dalvin Cook here. But I honestly do have to say Dalvin Cook is my best bet. And I know it's a little bit risky, and maybe you're not as risk adverse as I am. But like for me, Dalvin Cook has everything in the making to be the guy. Like he's in the contract year, so he'll want to prove himself. Hopefully it doesn't lead to a real big holdout like these other guys. But he has everything. Like he can be the bell cow back. We've seen it. He also has Gary Kubiak taking over full control of this offense. And I don't know if you guys can look back to all the guys that Gary Kubiak's coached, but we're talking about Arian Foster. We're talking about top 10, top 5 running backs in the league in a zone scheme. We've saw this team devote even more to the run by shipping off Stephon Diggs for draft picks this offseason. So we're talking about a team that is committed. I mean, we saw games last year where they threw only 10 times per game. They want to run the football. They want to play to Mike Zimmer's defense. And I think Dalvin Cook is the perfect guy you can get. And especially if this holdout stuff lingers, you could start to get him at a value. Yeah. I think about a couple years ago when Ezekiel Elliott was facing suspension charges. And if you plugged your nose and drafted Ezekiel Elliott, for some of that season, we were feeling really good. This is a little bit different, and you should know a little bit more. But I do see a situation where Dalvin Cook plays this year and really outperforms the other two in this tier. Do like Alvin Kamara to bounce back this year, but I just don't think he's the safest bet. He's always lived on efficiency. Yeah. All right, so tier 2 is a big one. It's a meaty one. So we in this tier of contract year running backs, we've got Chris Carson, Leonard Fournette, Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, Kenyon Drake, James Conner, and Todd Gurley. So we talked about James Conner. I don't think either of us are putting our hat on James Conner to come out of this tier. But Johnny, if you had to have one horse in this race, I already know who this is.
Yeah, of course
but
you do.
For the sake of this show, I was going to pick Kenyon Drake as well, but I think I'll let you take Kenyon Drake and I'll go with someone else.
Well, I mean, I do like a lot of these running backs, but Travis, I'm not saying this as a homer pick. I'm not saying this because I believe Kenyon Drake is a tremendous value and he should absolutely be going higher than where he is in ADP. And he's just a great fantasy player. And I called this all the way back to like when he was playing Pee Wee football. I'm not going to bring up any of that stuff. Okay. What I'm going to say, a simple song that we all know and love and we learned it when we were children. One of these is not like the other. All right. Chris, what do all these guys have in common? All right. Chris Carson, Leonard Fournette, Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, James Conner, and Todd Gurley. What do all those guys have in common that Drake does not have? And that is the injury bug. All those guys have injuries or have had injuries that they've missed significant time. Kenyon Drake is the only one that has not missed significant time because of injuries. He's on one of the best offenses out of this whole entire list. And so for me, it's easy to say Kenyon Drake, but not just because I am in love with Kenyon Drake, but because it is the right answer based on the circumstances.
Yeah, I think you've.
But I do like all these guys.
I think, look, Drake is the clear answer in this tier. You talk about talent, he's got it. It's a combination, all these things. You talk about opportunity. He's very much so got that because they've shipped David Johnson off as part of the DeAndre Hopkins deal, and so now Kenyon Drake has this backfield. He has the support of his coaching staff. And so he's got that. And then you talk about the offense, the pedigree of the offense. This offense is about to blow the doors off the rest of the league, most likely. If everything goes right and Cliff Kingsbury gets his way and, a big if, but I think that we're all in agreement that this is going to happen. If Kyler Murray takes a step forward, you are going to want many pieces of this offense. It has a chance to hit the ceiling of a Baltimore or of a Kansas City, of an offense that you're going to really want to be involved in. And I know this is just making Johnny so happy as a Cardinals fan.
Hey, dude, there's plenty of room on the bandwagon if you want to come on over, dude.
No,
there's plenty of room, dude.
Yeah, no, but I will, for the sake of this show, and because I think we need to talk a little bit about it, is Joe Mixon. I think people are sleeping on Joe Mixon. We've talked about this before previously on the show, but Joe Mixon is my guy in this tier if I can't choose Kenyon Drake. And that's because Joe Mixon was a top 10 RB last year. He was a top 10 RB in carries. He was a touchdown guy for them. And this is a team that is going to improve. I am a firm believer that Joe Burrow is an improvement on Andy Dalton and anybody else who played quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals in the last 10 years. And I think that when you mix all those things together, plus the weapons that they brought in T. Higgins, you talk about the guys that they've had in that wide receiver room for a couple of years, a fully healthy A.J. Green, all of these things should mean more opportunities for Joe Mixon, who is already a guy in top 10 in opportunities. So for me, it's Joe Mixon in tier 2. Now, tier 3 is another meaty one here, but it's kind of got some guys you may want to steer clear of. So I'll let Johnny talk about which guy he thinks, but first we'll list these. Tier 3 has Malcolm Brown, Kareem Hunt, Damian Williams, Tevin Coleman, Matt Breida, Phillip Lindsay, Marlon Mack. So, Johnny, when initially 2 names stood out to me in this, and that would be Tevin Coleman and Matt Breida. And so those were my 2 names that I kind of leaned on. But we did just talk about Kareem Hunt, and I have to say, I think you kind of got me going on the Kareem Hunt bandwagon. So talk to me. Who's your guy in tier 3?
Yeah, so my guy is Kareem Hunt, and that's kind of why I was holding back a little bit on the Kareem Hunt hype train earlier. The answer to me is super clear in Kareem Hunt. I do like Phillip Lindsay as a secondary call in this one, so it's interesting that you and I both have 2 different guys that we like, which is great. It means that there's some depth deeper on in the draft. But for me, it's easy. It is Kareem Hunt because he's so efficient. I understand that he's only going to get 7 to 14 touches per game, but Travis, he's so efficient with those. You're talking about Alvin Kamara being efficient with his touches. Kareem Hunt has been extremely efficient with his touches. Last year, he averaged 1.15 fantasy points per touch. So, and I already broke down his what he did once he returned to action last year. He stayed healthy, throughout his career. And here's the other thing that all these other guys, well, maybe Damian Williams has, they do have the potential, but not to the severity of a guy like Kareem Hunt. And that is, if anything does happen to Nick Chubb, God forbid, don't want it to, but if anything does, you're staring and every week RB1, hands down, no doubt. Kareem Hunt is in your lineup as an RB1, and you're going to be so happy you draft him. So not only is he a great flex option that you can get 6th, 7th, 8th round in drafts, but he has the amazing upside that we know what he can do. It's not a question of like, oh, maybe he could do it. We know he is an RB1 if he's the only guy in town.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's about the upside of these guys should something happen to the guys around them. And I think on that point is why I would take a long, hard look at Tevin Coleman. Look, Matt Breida, I think the situation is there, but Jordan Howard exists. And the fact that the Miami Dolphins had the worst ranked offensive line in football last year from Pro Football Focus. They only drafted one lineman. And that guy is probably a project in Austin Jackson.
Yeah.
He's not exactly there right now. So if that's being said, I think the Miami backfield is a little bit concerning to me. So I'll go with Tevin Coleman. Obviously, I don't think he's going to be the guy. And I don't know if the guy exists in a San Fran offense, right? They're going to have Mostert. They're going to have Tevin Coleman. But they did get rid of Matt Breida, who seemed to be the biggest kryptonite for Tevin Coleman's success at times last year, other than the injury. If you have a piece of the San Fran offense, they love to run the football. They just run the hell out of the football. And I think Tevin Coleman, should something happen to Mostert, could be a guy that has these 4 touching games like he had last year.
Well, I think it could even happen even if Mostert's there. Like we've seen it.
Like,
yeah. So give me the cheapest. Give me the cheapest.
I'm saying the upside. You talk about Kareem Hunt's upside, where Kareem Hunt's upside is in the fact that he is an all-around great player. So the upside for Tevin Coleman is pure scheme. Yeah. If something happened to Mostert and you have Tevin Coleman, you're going to be sitting there pretty happy.
And the love that the offense or the head coach has in Tevin Coleman. He loves Tevin Coleman.
And let's not forget, dude, Tevin Coleman is one of the better prospects to come out of college in a long time.
You don't have to tell me that.
Charles. Yeah, no, Johnny, I know you're a Tevin Coleman hater, so I just had to bring that up.
Oh, so, yeah.
All right. So
Whisper Nation, I wanted to be known that I had him on my dynasty team last year and had to defend why I chose Tevin Coleman. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Whisperers podcast. You can hear more from John and Travis on Google Play, SoundCloud, and iTunes. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at TF Whisperers.